The NBA and Los Angeles Clippers are now 5-16 and a complete disaster. They announced this morning that Chris Paul is no longer a part of it.
The NBA was still reeling after Chris Paul was forced out of the Clippers in one of the most brutal ways imaginable. But what happened next shocked everyone even more. What James Harden and Kawhi Leonard later revealed about Ty Lue's involvement turned this into a full-blown league-wide storm almost overnight. And honestly, the details are hard to believe. So let's break it down. This was not a routine roster move or a quiet front office decision. Not even close. This was a late-night bombshell that caught the entire NBA off guard. It was around 3 a.m. Eastern on December 4, 2025. The Clippers were on the road, staying at a team hotel in Atlanta, preparing to play the Hawks later that day. While most of the team was asleep, Chris Paul was wide awake. And for good reason. This is a 12-time All-Star, an 11-time All-NBA selection, one of the greatest floor leaders the game has ever seen. A point guard with more career assists than anyone except John Stockton. To many fans, he is still the greatest Clipper of all time. And in that moment, he was being told his time with the franchise was over. Just like that. Shortly after, Ramona Shelburne posted on X a message that stunned fans. Just found out I'm being sent home. Peace. This was the same franchise where Chris Paul built his legacy during the unforgettable Lob City era. The team most closely tied to his name. And suddenly, it was done. No tribute. No warning. No respect. What made it even worse was how he found out. There was no formal meeting back in Los Angeles. No private conversation with ownership. No carefully planned phone call. Instead, Chris Paul was informed during a late-night, 3-hour meeting with Clippers president of basketball operations Lawrence Frank, inside a hotel in Atlanta, while the team was on the road. As soon as that meeting ended, Chris Paul didn't wait for a press release or a spin from the team. He went straight to Instagram and told the world himself. One short message said everything. Just found out I'm being sent home. Peace. A simple peace sign emoji followed. That was it. That's how one of the greatest point guards in NBA history had to announce the end of his Clippers career, live, raw, and in real time. But here's where the story truly explodes. James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, the two stars the Clippers are built around, had no idea this was coming. No warning. No heads up. Nothing. The leaders of the locker room and the faces of the franchise found out Chris Paul was gone the exact same way the fans did, through social media. No phone call. No team meeting. No explanation. Just a post, a peace sign, and chaos spreading across the entire NBA.
Here's Ramona Shelburne. She posted it onto X. Just found out I'm being sent home. Peace.
They woke up, checked their phones, and instantly the story was everywhere. Every major sports network was flashing the news like an emergency alert. Still, there had been no call from the front office. No warning from the coaching staff. Somehow, no one thought it was important to tell the Clippers' two biggest stars that a future Hall of Famer was being sent home in the middle of the night. Later that evening, after the Clippers cruised to a 115-92 win over the Hawks, reporters finally spoke with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. Their reaction said far more than any official statement ever could. By then, the league was buzzing nonstop, and the media rushed to get answers. James Harden, who previously played alongside Chris Paul in Houston, didn't try to soften his words. He looked truly caught off guard. I'm just as confused and shocked as you guys, Harden said. The whole world surprised me, not just Chris. Then he added something even more telling. There's a lot we've been dealing with, but that's out of my hands. I've got to focus on what I can control. I guess the front office felt this was the best decision for the organization. That wasn't a meaningless comment. It was a quiet warning. That line, asterisk not just Chris asterisk, spoke volumes. Harden wasn't pointing to one single issue. He was hinting at deeper problems that had been building behind the scenes. This wasn't one bad decision. It looked like part of a bigger pattern. And the front office seemed to believe that removing Chris Paul would somehow solve it all. Then came Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi is known for being calm, brief, and emotionally guarded. He's not someone who delivers dramatic quotes. But even he couldn't hide how shaken he was. He described the news as shocking, and coming from Kawhi, that alone says a lot. What made it even more surprising was what he revealed next. Kawhi said he had recently been having positive, forward-looking conversations with Chris Paul about improving the team. These weren't arguments or tense exchanges. They were real basketball talks, productive discussions about how to play better and move forward together.
Is on a minute restriction. And sources told me that when he was guarding Klay Thompson, he was struggling when he got into the game after sitting down for a while. He was struggling keeping up with Klay Thompson. And so there was a timeout call late in that fourth quarter. And during the fourth quarter and during that timeout, Chris Paul went to Kawhi Leonard and said, "Hey, man, are you fresh enough? Do you feel good? Do you feel like you can stick with Klay Thompson?" And he asked the teammates, he said, "Hey, y'all might want to switch this. Wait till he gets warm until he goes and guards Klay." And so I was told that Jeff Van Gundy told Chris Paul, "Listen, you might have had leeway in other places to be able to, to change up defensive coverages, but you don't have that leeway here." And that was just one of the minor verbal incidents between Jeff Van Gundy and Chris Paul. That was one of a few.
I mean, just speaking on this specific incident that Chris is talking about, I've had those conversations with guys as we're leaving the huddle. Hey, let's try to look at this. Let's try to look at that. That's based on the trust that I've built with those guys, and that's based on the trust that I've built with the coaching staff. I am one of those guys that I will refuse to let one guy take down 50.
Take a moment and really think about that. Kawhi Leonard was actively working with Chris Paul to help turn the season around. They were trying to fix things together. And then, without any warning at all, Paul was gone, sent home as if he had crossed some unseen boundary that no one ever explained. Some people tried to shift the blame onto the players. A few analysts suggested that Harden and Kawhi should have stepped up more. But shows like PTI shut that idea down quickly. They made it clear the problem wasn't in the locker room. It was in the front office. Once you look at the timeline, the situation looks even worse. The tension leading to Chris Paul's exit had been building for weeks. Paul had been demanding accountability from everyone, players, coaches, and management alike. No one was spared. That approach reportedly created serious friction, especially with head coach Ty Lue. According to multiple reports, the two hadn't even been speaking to each other for weeks before the decision was made. That's not normal. That's dysfunction. At the same time, the Clippers were stuck in a nightmare start to the 2025-26 season. They were sitting at 6-16, the second worst record in the Western Conference. And to make matters worse, they didn't even control their own draft pick, it belonged to Oklahoma City. There was no safety net. No easy reset. So here was the reality. The team kept losing, had no way to tank for a top pick, and chemistry inside the locker room was already strained. Instead of fixing the system, the organization chose to remove the loudest, most demanding voice in the room and hoped that would calm everything down. Behind the scenes, things were clearly unraveling fast. Now that the public shock from Harden and Kawhi is out in the open, it's time to look at what was really happening behind closed doors. And the reported fallout between Chris Paul and Ty Lue helps explain how this situation spun completely out of control. According to several reports, Paul and Lue hadn't had real conversations for weeks before the decision. Their communication was said to be limited to only basic, on-court instructions. No meaningful dialogue. No real connection. Ty Lue quickly pushed back on those claims and flatly denied them. When asked directly whether he and Paul had stopped talking, Lue said that wasn't true. But what came out afterward told a different story. When Lue finally addressed the media, his tone was calm, but his words stood out. He admitted he didn't like how things ended. Then he said something that raised eyebrows across the league. He explained that, in the end, the fit just wasn't right.
In Los Angeles Clippers, who are now 5-16 and a complete disaster. They announced this morning that Chris Paul is no longer a part of their team. The Clippers sent Paul back to LA from Atlanta on a one-way ticket. My sense of this is that it's on the general manager and the coach. Okay, they stink. They have lost 14 of their last 16.